Hello and welcome back to Drinking by My Shelf. I'm Emma and today I'm going to tell you about the authors that I will insta-buy. These are the authors that the second I see they've got a new book coming out, I am 100% going to buy it without even really needing to know what it's about. Everyone's got some of these, right? Like everyone's got those authors that they just loyally follow no matter what. So comment below and let me know who yours are, because I'll definitely go and check them out, because if you love them that much, I might as well. But I'm going to tell you about my 12 authors that I'm pretty much just dedicated to. Author number 1 is Clare Mackintosh. So I've only got 2 of her books here. I do own the third one, let me lie, but I lent it to my friend, so you're just going to have to imagine it. Now, I read these in the order that they came out. I started with I Let You Go, which is one of the best thrillers I've ever read. It's got one of the best twists I've ever read. It's so much more than the thriller genre can be. Like, it's really powerful and sad and emotional and it's an odd one. Like, when I first read it, for the first half of the book, nothing was really happening. It's quite slow moving, and yet I was really gripped. I remember thinking to myself, like, when I put the book down about halfway through, I was like, I'm not yet like hooked in this plot of needing to know what happens, so I'm confused about this being a thriller, but at the same time, I can't stop, and I stayed up till like 3 a.m. reading it, even in the first half while it was really slow, and then there's this just phenomenal twist halfway through, and then I was just absolutely gripped. So this is one of the best thrillers ever. Her next book, I See You, this is really creepy. So this one, it was definitely more like in the traditional thriller side of things. It's about basically women getting stalked on the tube or on their commute, and it's about the idea that if you have a commute, if you have a daily routine, people can learn what you're doing and follow you. And it was so creepy because I do commute to work, so now whenever I'm on the tube, I'm looking around like, have I seen any of these faces before? Have they been following me? So these two were just both really, really brilliant thrillers. So after these two, I was a loyal Clare Mackintosh fan. Then she released Let Me Lie, and actually I didn't really like it that much. It was fine, I didn't dislike it, but it didn't fit with how good these two were, in my mind. But that just shows how good these first two are, that I still consider her very much an insta-buy author. I'm really, really excited to see what she does next. I will 100% buy it as soon as it comes out, because maybe Let Me Lie just wasn't for me, but I know that her style I really like. Because even in Let Me Lie, even though I wasn't into that storyline as much, I still loved the way that she created the characters, particularly the character of the detective, because usually in thrillers I don't really care about the detective side of things. I care more about the victims and the people that things are happening to, but she writes very interesting detective police side of things, I guess, because she was in the police force, so she knows all about that. So Clare Mackintosh, absolutely an insta-buy author, and these are the 2 favourites of hers that I've read. Author number 2 that I've put here, technically I'm already kind of lying because there's 2 of her books that I haven't bought, but this is Louise O'Neill. So I read Asking For It and Only Ever Yours a few years ago, and these are YA books, but they're incredibly powerful, like issue-driven YA books, and they're very, very feminist. So Asking For It is about a girl who is raped, and she's deliberately painted as this unlikable character, and like does everything wrong in terms of how people will spin the story to make it seem like it was her fault. So people say that she was asking for it, but this book is all about showing how completely ridiculous that is as a concept. Even if this girl is very unlikable and does all of the things that people say you shouldn't do that make you asking for it, when you read it, it's just so grueling and horrific that it just shows to you how could you ever say that anybody was asking for this? Nobody would ask for that. So that was really, really powerful but hard to read book. Only Ever Yours is a kind of Handmaid's Tale retelling, basically, or it really is. It's a strong Handmaid's Tale retelling, but it's about teenagers at this school, kind of this institution where they are brought up and raised to be either companions or concubines. So it's basically a metaphor for the world and how the world treats women. Really, really powerful stuff, and I think these are great examples of young adult books that are changing the world and, bringing issues to light to young people, so I think they're fantastic. Now, having said she's an insta-buy author, she then wrote a feminist Little Mermaid retelling, which I didn't buy, just because I'm not really into the kind of fantasy side of things, or I didn't feel like I was at the time, and I'd recently read a Little Mermaid retelling, so I didn't buy that one. She has then released an adult book called Almost Love, which I'm definitely going to buy. It's been out for like a year now, and I haven't bought it, so slap on the wrist, Emma, you said she was your insta-buy, but that's just because I'm trying to not buy so many books these days, but it's absolutely top of my list. I'm going to buy it any second now. It sounds amazing. And even though I don't read much young adult these days, if Louise O'Neill releases another feminist YA book, I will 100% buy it. Next up, I have an insta-buy author who reached that status just on the back of one book, which is impressive. So that is Jonas Jonasson, the author of The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared. So I have bought everything else that he's got. I've got them all over there. I didn't take them all down off my shelf. And it's funny that I'm still so loyal to him, even though I haven't loved any of the other books as much as this one. So after this, he wrote a book called The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden, which was very, very funny. So these books are hilarious. He's got such a ridiculous, dry sense of humour, and I love it. And The Girl Who Saved the King of Sweden was also very, very funny, though not as captivating and enchanting as this one. And then I've bought his next two books and haven't even read them yet. There was one called Hitman Anders and the Meaning of It All, just reading that off my shelf there, which I actually haven't read because both my sister and my husband started to read it and kind of gave up on it, and they both loved this one as much as I did. And then he's done a sequel to this, The Further Adventures of the 100-Year-Old Man, which is up there on my TBR shelf. So I haven't read them all yet, but he is still an insta-buy author, even though so far it's just really this book that so won me over, but this one was so good that I'm just loyal and dedicated to him forever now. Another YA author now who is an insta-buy, despite the fact that, as I said, I don't really read that much young adult these days, is Adam Silvera. So he completely won me over first with this one, More Happy Than Not. This is the story of a gay teenager struggling to come to terms with his own sexuality, and he lives in a world which is basically our world, but just with this one kind of sci-fi aspect, which is there is a company who can erase parts of your memories. So just like in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, they can take out certain things that you want to forget. So it's all just kind of building up. You can tell the whole way building up towards the moment when he's going to decide that it's too hard for him, he's finding it too hard being gay in a not particularly accepting situation, and that he's going to want to get that part of his memories and identity erased from him. And it is so sad. Oh my goodness. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful story, but really, really sad. Adam Silvera does not write happy books. It's something you need to know about him. But he has spoken, I think, on Twitter about the fact that people sometimes criticise the fact that LGBTQ storylines often are tragic rather than happy, which is definitely a problem. If you're looking at the bigger picture, it's a problem that that's kind of the majority. But he has said, that doesn't mean that he can't write his own sad stories. That's what he likes to write. So, agreed, fair enough, and he does write very sad stories. So this one's my absolute favourite, but then he also wrote They Both Die at the End, where, spoiler alert, they both die at the end, so that's going to happen, so that's cheery. And History Is All You Left Me, which is about a boy grieving after the death of his boyfriend and kind of moving on to new things. So these are all fantastic. I think he's just wonderful. He's basically the only young adult writer now that I still will buy everything from. Having said that, another little cheat, I haven't bought the book that he co-wrote with Becky Albertalli, but I haven't really looked into it much, and I may do. I'm always just a little bit wary of how it works, co-writing authors, if what I love about him is still going to be there, and I haven't read any of Becky Albertalli's yet, so I don't know if I love her writing, but I probably will buy it. I'm definitely going to look into it, and anything else that he writes solo, I will definitely buy. Author number 5 is a new author to me, and I'm already dedicated. That is Helen Oyeyemi. So I actually have read one years and years ago, back when I was still at school, so we're talking 10 plus years ago. I read The Icarus Girl, which I think was her debut novel. And I don't really remember it, so I'm going to go back and reread it. But this year, I read Gingerbread, which is her most recent book. And it just is absolutely enchanting. It's so weird. Something you need to know about Helen Oyeyemi is her books are bizarre. They're not traditional narratives. You may have to read them several times to understand them. Even then you won't understand them. I've read this one twice already, and I liked it a lot more the second time around. They're just completely bizarre, non-linear, magical, haunting books, but there is something about them, even though often I'm not understanding what's happening, something about them that just makes me completely fall in love and want to just dive into that world and explore her brain forever. So I'm going back and reading her back catalogue. I read White is for Witching, which is a kind of ghost story about a haunted house. The house is actually a character in the story, and it's bizarre and really creepy. Then I read Mr. Fox, which probably my least favourite of hers so far, but there's still something about it I still liked. And this is basically a writer and his imaginary muse, who he's made up, engaging in a battle of the wits, where they're each writing stories, and she's trying to show him that the fact that he always kills off the women in his stories is violent, it's about violence against women, but also her angle on it is kind of just I don't like it from a storytelling perspective, it's lazy. So it's kind of really, really weird and interesting. So I'm just going to be going back and reading all of her books so far. It's probably going to be a while before there's anything new because Gingerbread just came out, but you can count on it. The second she writes something else, I will be there. Okay, then we have Gillian McAllister. I've only got 2 physical books here. The others I have read, but they are on my Kindle. So Gillian McAllister writes sort of crime thriller novels, but they're more about questioning the morality or like the ethics of different situations, kind of. It's more of a like, what would I do in this situation, rather than a kind of scary thriller, basically. And I love it, and it's so interesting. I am going to do a whole author spotlight video on her, so I'm not going to talk too much about all the books here, but I'll just tell you this one I think is my favourite of hers so far, and it's a kind of sliding doors, like split perspective of, at the beginning, a woman accidentally commits a crime and chooses either to stay and wait for the police to get there or to run away, and then we keep going back and forth between the 2 different options and where her life leads her, and it's just amazing, like fascinating stuff, because you're so kind of in her shoes and trying to work out what would you have done and how easy it would be to get into that situation. Like, oh my goodness, so good. So Gillian McAllister, absolutely love her. The 4th book is called The Evidence Against You, and that one isn't actually out yet. I think I just read it on NetGalley. I am going to be buying the physical versions because I want a full set, because she is just great. And also I got to interview her once and I chatted to her online a bit, and she's just a really lovely person. So yeah, insta-buy author. An insta-buy author that I imagine is on a lot of your lists is Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I do own all of her books so far. I haven't read them all. I'm working my way through her back catalogue, but these are the 2 where I really started to get into her. The early stuff isn't quite kind of my genre, though I do enjoy it. But these 2 are just absolutely phenomenal. So I really like the new style that she's found for herself. And this one especially, Daisy Jones, is really experimental, which is really cool. So yeah, I will just forever be really excited to see what she's doing next. I feel like if you read your way through her back catalogue, which I'm doing, and once I've done it, I will do an author spotlight on her too. I feel like she's an author that you can really see grow, which is so exciting, and like come into her style as she goes. So I just think she's getting better and better, and whatever she does next is going to be phenomenal. If you want to know more about either of those books, I've talked about them in almost every video I've ever made. So go wild, browse the videos, you'll find something about me raving about them. Okay, my next author is Sarah Winman. And these 2 I read very far apart. So back when I was at uni, I read When God Was a Rabbit, which is just a slow, really lovely kind of family story, but with a plot point in it that's similar to stuff that's happening in Jane the Virgin at the moment. So that's what made me remember this book. And I read it and I really liked it, but then had kind of forgotten about it. And then she wrote Tin Man. And this one's absolutely beautiful. So this is a story about a bisexual man who is married to a woman who he completely loves, and then also we learn about his childhood romance or teenage romance with his childhood best friend. And it's a really wonderful exploration of bisexuality, and both of those love stories are equally valid and really powerful, and oh my god, it's really sad and just absolutely beautiful. So it was only really when I went to put this on my shelf, because my shelf was alphabetical, that I noticed it was right next to this one and I'd forgotten it, which makes me kind of want to reread this one now. But I think that she just has a very beautiful style of writing, and she writes about relationships in a very real and deep and nuanced way, which is brilliant. Everything I look for in an author. So I will definitely be buying whatever she writes next. Another author I imagine is on quite a few of your lists is Celeste Ng. So she has just written 2 so far, and I've read them both, Little Fires Everywhere and Everything I Never Told You. 5-star reads, both of these. Both of these books are the kind of books that leave you with so many questions and so many discussion points to mull over, and you just want to talk about them. And I actually included this one in my 5 books, 5 questions video, where you talk about like the questions that books left you with. So I will link to that one if you wanted to go and talk about this book some more. But they're both just absolutely brilliant. She has such an amazing style of writing. I actually compared her to Jane Austen at one point, because she does that free and direct speech, I think it's called, where the books are written in the 3rd person, but the narrator adopts the perspective and the voice of whichever character she's talking about. So you really get inside the characters' heads, even though it's seen by this omniscient narrator, which is a really, really clever style of writing that I absolutely adore, and I love it in Jane Austen, and I love it in Celeste Ng. So I'm so excited for her to write another one. Please write something soon. We haven't had a book for a while from this one, but this is Gillian Flynn. So Gillian Flynn's quite divisive. Gone Girl was one of those massively overhyped books that always can put people off. not to sound all hipster about it, but I read it before I heard the hype, which I think was really lucky for me because it meant that I just loved it. I didn't know there was going to be a twist, I didn't know anything. I read it on my Kindle because I just saw like a little review in a magazine when I was over in the States one summer. I saw a little review just saying it was like a good thriller, and I, at that point, didn't really read thrillers. Like it wasn't a genre that I'd ever read before, so I don't know if I would have loved it so much if I read it now, but I downloaded it on my Kindle, knew nothing about it, read it on the plane back, and just could not sleep the whole flight because I was so hooked on this book, and I was just so shocked that books could get that dark. I hadn't really read anything that dark before, so this one absolutely kick-started my love of thrillers. I've read all of her books now. Gone Girl is still my favourite. I didn't actually love Dark Places that much. I really liked Sharp Objects, and I quite enjoyed The Grown Up. So, you know, hit and miss, but I just love how dark she is as a writer. She still remains darker than a lot of the other thrillers that I read. So she hasn't written another full novel for a while. Apparently she's got a Hamlet retelling coming up. Really excited to see what she does. I want to get dark and spooky with her again. Author number 11 is Jessica Knoll. So she wrote Luckiest Girl Alive, which came out a few years ago, and that one, oh my goodness, absolutely hooked. I remember reading this one on a camping trip and like not coming out of my tent for hours in the morning because I was reading it, and I was like, so sorry friends I'm here with, I can't talk to you, I have to read this book. And it's based partly on her own experiences. She's written a really powerful essay about that. There's so many things happen in this book, like there's so many different aspects of it. It is a ride. It was fantastic. And then she wrote The Favourite Sister, which is quite different. This is about a reality show that these two sisters are part of, and it's this supposedly feminist reality show, but she's poking holes in how it's still just manipulating the women in it. And we know from the beginning that one of the sisters died before the end of the season, and then we go back and watch what led up to that. And it's controversial, this one. Like, this is one of those books that you read it and you want someone else to have read it instantly because you need to talk about it. Like, she's not afraid to go into some rather controversial issues, and I respect that, to be fair. So these two books, very different. This one's a bit more like trashy fun page turner, and this one I think goes a bit deeper. So loves them both for different reasons, and because they're so different I'm really excited to see what she does next. And then finally, my 12th insta-buy author is Fredrik Backman. So Beartown is one of my favourite books of all time. I've also read A Man Called Ove of his, and I have read the sequel to this, which is called Us Against Them, but it was a little disappointing. But I still really, really like his writing style. He's quite no nonsense, and his books are all heartwarming without being sugary sweet, which I really like. Like this one in particular is quite gritty and dark and sad, but his books have a lot of hope in them, which is just lovely. Really lovely to read. I cried happy tears at the end of this book, and it's quite hard work for a book to make me actually cry out of my face, but this one did it. So I don't know what he's working on next. I still have a few of his older books to work my way through the back catalogue, so those will keep me busy for a while, and then hopefully by the time I've got through them all, he will have a new Beartown. So those are the 12 authors that I will just follow devotedly no matter what they do, and I would obviously love to hear about yours, so let me know. And give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button below because I post new videos every week. See you next time!